I mean, the Rapsodo technology would have helped me understand what I was exactly doing on the field, right? We can always assume we're doing certain things and feeling certain things, but unless I have a technology that's feeding exact data, exact numbers to me, exact statistics, then I can't really evaluate how I can grow, right? I can't really see, this is what I did today, this is what will do tomorrow, or this is what I did when I was in 9th grade, this is what I'm gonna do in 10th grade. So I think using it as a measuring stick is something that I missed out on, right? Because you could have somebody look at your video, but if you don't have exact numbers that go along with that video, it's really hard to evaluate how you've progressed. So that's what I wish I would have had, and there's no excuse now that you have Rapsodo available. Specifically as a hitter, for me, there's always weaknesses, right? And I think if you can better understand those weaknesses by seeing numbers and data while training, first of all, in practice, right? If I'm hitting off the tee and Rapsodo's feeding me back numbers, which could be on the downside, which could be negative, right? It could be the wrong launch angle that I'm looking for. Okay, well now I know from a training aspect because I'm getting the feedback immediately. And then I can work from there. That to me is invaluable. And then once you're able to go from a training aspect, you can take that then into the game, because it's not a seamless transition. But if I see my numbers training wise are starting to look right, then okay, my numbers in the game, where do they need to be? They're not where I want them to be. All right, let's make sure Rapsodo, I'm evaluating myself, I'm looking back at the numbers, I'm looking back at the training sessions, putting that all together, and now I'm getting better as a player in game. After my AA season in 2013, I was able to make the big leagues in 2014, but during that off season, I'm going back, I looked at every single at bat that I had throughout the course of the 2013 season. I'm looking video-wise, what was I doing right? What was I doing wrong? What I didn't have was the numbers to look at the exit velocity of balls that I thought hit well to right center. What was I doing as far as the exit velocity on balls that were on the inner third? I couldn't see that, right? So that's one area in which I wish I could see a little bit more to be able to evaluate myself as I look back on the season. And then take that into spring training, right? That to me is what I wanted to see more of. Same thing with launch angle too, right? I'm hitting balls that maybe I feel like are hit well up the middle, but maybe they're being top spin. I can't see the spin axis. I can't see the launch angle. That's what Rapsodo is going to be able to offer to me during that time, but I can't put the video and the numbers together because I wasn't available to use that when I wanted to. Yeah, I think during that time I was playing and then really transitioning into broadcasting, it was hard as a player to understand what those numbers meant. You felt overwhelmed by a lot of those statistical numbers, a lot of those analytic numbers. Now, as a broadcaster, they are so important to prediction, understanding somebody's game, knowing what they're going to do moving forward. Evaluation a lot of times isn't just necessarily what you've done before in the past, but now with Rapsodo, we can tell what you're going to do moving forward. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing as a broadcaster, is understanding that the numbers have become almost the biggest part of our game now. And we've simplified it by products like Rapsodo and being able to use them via training sessions and then being able to take it to Major League Baseball fields, even going from Little League fields all the way to Major League Baseball fields. Evaluating from a hitting and a pitching standpoint, power is huge, right? Power is the number one part of our game. We're able to evaluate those numbers via Rapsodo now, even if you haven't seen a player, right? And I think that, to me, if you're able to take that into, okay, how is a player being evaluated when they're going to get drafted, right? What are some of those numbers that grew throughout the year, and what can you project them to be? That's what I had to do as someone that's an analyst at the major league level, looking at college players, looking at high school players. And that's the number one thing you hear talked about, is this player's numbers went from this to this. Exit velo's now gone through the roof, right? The ability to have that launch angle consistent. I think a lot of the talk for broadcasters and analysts now is how consistent is a player able to keep those numbers. And I think from an evaluation standpoint, now when I'm training, I can look at how can I keep this number consistent? What am I doing in my swing path that is able to keep this number consistent? What am I doing from a release point as a pitcher that's able to keep this number consistent? Stride length, all that stuff. Now you have a better way to evaluate yourself. Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that, you know, it's the numbers are overwhelming, right? They're hard to understand. Some of the products may be tough to set up or tough to get going and really learn about, you know. And I think that's what's different about today's day and age is, like, especially Rapsodo, everything's been simplified. They do the work for you. You don't have to figure out the math and figure out all these numbers. Everything is done extremely quick. Setup is quick. You get feedback extremely quick. And I think in today's day and age, we're always talking about timing. We're always talking about getting everything as quick as possible, information as much as possible, as quick as possible. That's where Rapsodo does the work for you. And I think that misconception a lot of times stops people from using something that what may be new to them, right? And I think that's a part of the misconception, is something new is going to be tough to learn. And that's where we have to kind of throw that out of the window, especially when you see it benefiting people to a different degree. It's being specific to, I think the simplification of those numbers is being specific to what you're looking for, right? And I think we can always be bombarded by numbers and details, but I think now a product like Rapsodo tells you exactly what I need to focus on. Is there one specific exit velo? Is that what I need to specifically work on? Spin rate, is that what I need to work on? Spin axis of how I'm hitting the baseball. I think it simplifies as a player what department you need to be most focused on and make a priority. All that information takes the guesswork out of it for the player. And I think if you're not trying to spend time figuring out what you have to get better at, what are your weaknesses, instead you see it immediately. You don't have to guess. You don't have to try to figure that out. So now I can spend more time on just improving. And I think whenever you're in the cage or whenever you're on the mound, you're out working at the field, you're trying to be efficient with your time. And I think that's one of the differences with Rapsodo too, is it helps you be more efficient with the time that you spend training and the time that you spend out there on the field. Well, I love how Rapsodo gives you a benchmark for where you're at. And I think that's, as a player, when you start using a product and you're trying to get familiar with it, you want to see what those benchmarks look like, right? So if I jump into the cage, I don't want to get out of control, start trying to get certain numbers. No, let me just start normal, start with practice, and start looking at those numbers as a benchmark. And then, okay, now I can start to improve on those numbers. That to me is going to be valuable for any player, whether that be a pitcher or a hitter. You have to start with a benchmark. Once your sessions start, then you can start, okay, how do I put the sessions together with video? Now I can start getting a little bit more detailed with it. But I think having the benchmark first is going to be important, because now you know where you start and how you've improved. Your confidence is going to be skyrocketed when you start to see, okay, now I can do certain things that specifically improve numbers. Anytime you're motivated by something to improve, I think that's, and you can see it visually on an iPad or whatever, immediately, that to me is going to build confidence. Not to mention taking the confidence from learning what you're doing in the field, but also, or taking the confidence from what you're learning in the cage or learning on the mound, and then taking that into the game, and you're seeing those numbers continue, and you're also seeing yourself actually transfer that work onto the field. That's a huge confidence booster for any player. Yeah, I think for young athletes just getting started, I think about how are you going to understand you're getting better. You need a place to start, and Rapsodo tells you where you started, right? Like, it gives you the benchmark numbers of where you're at. And I think for a young player who's trying to develop skills, that's how I know my skills are getting better, is seeing those numbers improve. I think about when I was younger and just starting baseball, I'm like always fighting with my dad because I'm feeling like I'm hitting the ball good, and dad saying, I don't think you hit that well. Well, like, we go to Rapsodo now, and we like, let's see the exit velo. Let's check it out, and you can see the feet. How far did I hit it? Right? Like, if you're at a sand lot and you're just hitting the ball, you may not know exactly how far it is just by looking. But maybe I do know now from Rapsodo, I hit that ball further than the last one, or better than the last session that we had. I'm hitting balls further. I'm hitting balls harder. I think now you can start to understand where you're starting, and I think for a youth athlete, that's really important. Well, I think Rapsodo's, essential for the recruiting aspect, right? So if I'm a young high school player looking to get to a university or a college or even a junior college, whatever it may be, I have the ability to download those sessions from Rapsodo specifically. You can see the spray charts. You can see how hard I'm hitting the ball. I can send those to coaches now, and I can send those to scouts even if necessary. They can evaluate those numbers and see how they compare to the guys on their team or guys that they want coming to their university or their school. And I think that takes away kind of the pain point of feeling like you need to travel with all these travel ball teams, or feeling like you're paying so much out of pocket to get to these different places to perform in front of coaches, to perform in front of scouts. I think that's huge. I think they can get that information as soon as possible, but you can send it out to as many as possible now and not just count on specific people seeing you play. One thing Rapsodo does is now I can compare numbers to whatever I need to compare them to. So if I'm a high school player, I'm trying to get to a specific level in college, I can look at some of those college numbers that players have and see what they've put up and where am I at. Again, we've talked about like benchmarking as a player and comparing to see what do I need to get to or what would I like to get to. And I think Rapsodo, from a training standpoint, helps you get there with certain steps. All those numbers that you're able to look at are going to be a guiding point for a player. And anytime you're comparing yourself, which can be tough to do because everybody's different, but I think now statistically, and you have those numbers to really point towards. Well, I look at the technology that Rapsodo is, and such a high technology, but normally you don't get it for this price point. And I think it's important to understand that you're able to take this wherever you want to take it to. Very portable, it's very accessible. Those things to me as a player are important because it takes away a lot of extra time. It keeps you efficient. Like I'm taking things that are with me that are essential. I'm taking those to the field. I'm taking it to the cage. I'm taking it wherever, and this makes it so much easier for me to be able to just grab and go. And also, I think when you talk about affordability, it's hard to beat Rapsodo. I think it's a fine line when I'm looking at training, whether it be my own kids or somebody else's kids, youth athletes, professional athletes, because after seeing certain numbers, you want to compare to other people, right? You want to look and, hey, I want you to get here. But I think the steps are just as important. And I think that's what you have to balance with Rapsodo is, hey, I want to make sure I'm getting incrementally better, right? I want to make sure that each time I step into a session and I'm documenting that session on the iPad or whatever it may be, that those numbers are continuing to progress. And I think that's my focus as I deal with my own players, my own kids. How can we focus on getting better? And sometimes we have to take those numbers away and then bring them back, right? Like, because the player's mind is something that we want to be able to make sure is clear and focused. And I think once you have those numbers, hey, okay, now I have a focus on what I need to do. Well, I think most of our training, is often done in the cage, right? And you're focused on, you almost have this tunnel vision, but I think Rapsodo gives you the ability to expand that vision and see what you would really do on the field. I specifically think about the spray chart. When I can kind of see where my balls are going, oftentimes in the cage, we may think it's going to go a certain place just because we're so enclosed. But I think Rapsodo gives you that opportunity to really evaluate where your balls are actually going, but also how am I hitting those balls? Am I hitting them with some backspin that would create carry? It's giving you real-time answers. Same thing with, as far as the exit velo, how hard am I hitting the ball off the bat? It may feel good, it may look like it's going, through the middle of the cage, but is that a really good ball that's hit with some feet on it? Or is it something that could be top spin and doesn't go as far as I thought it did off the bat? So that feel versus real aspect, it may feel a certain way, but Rapsodo tells me what's real. What Rapsodo does is eases the communication between a player, a trainer, to the athlete, right? And vice versa. The athlete can talk about those numbers to the trainer. Hey, these are certain things that I feel like I need to come in and get better. Hey, these are certain things that my coaches are telling me at the next level they want to see. When I return back to school, this is what the coaches want to see. They need to see these types of improvements. And I think that's how you learn a lot about what those improvements are doing for you. Especially when you're training, right? Like you said, we may not have the access to always be out on the field and really see what we're doing on the baseball field, but if we have it in the cage, we can see how those sessions continue to move forward and what they would look like out on the field. I think if I'm a young athlete who has social media, which is something that everybody has nowadays, is I have to be using Rapsodo via social media. I've got to be showing those metrics on social media. I can be posting them. It makes it easy to post my numbers because everybody can look good. You know, when you just swinging the bat, the videos you write up on you sounds good off the tee, off flips, you know, but until you're actually posting those numbers, we know that those are real. So I think that's one of the things that's cool is I can be seen off of social media nowadays. You have, whether it be coaches, whoever it may be, checking the kids' social media more and more, seeing what they're doing via those training sessions. Now I have direct information if I'm a coach when I'm looking at your page. And then I can see the date obviously too, so I continue to see how much better you're getting if you're putting that work in.